as we take this serger from a 4-thread to a 3-thread. I'm going to show you some basics to understand. Number one, what's the difference between those two stitches and how to do it on the Husqvarna Viking Amber S100. So a 3-thread, we're going to actually do a narrow 3-thread, which means we're going to be only using the inside needle, the right needle. I am going to take out the left needle and remove the thread. So I want to show you how I go about doing that. But before I show you, let's just talk about like where you would use a 3-thread. So on this jacket, there was lots of pieces, and what I wanted to do is be able to fit it. So I actually cut all the pieces out, and I overlocked every piece with a 3-thread overlocked edge. And I did not cut anything off because if I had needed that fabric for more or less alterations, I didn't want to have that removed. And I came back with my sewing machine to sew the seams together. So I have 2 overlocked edges. The other benefit is when you do that on a nicer garment like this one, is you get to press your seams open. So like here, I actually was just using like a traditional quilt binding for going all the way around all the pieces here. And so by being able to, and you can see it at the bottom, where I can press those open, it makes that edge be not so bulky because they're all on the left or the right as I stitch. So this is one place where if you're unsure of like fit, that a 3-thread around the single edge of fabric, and even if you're just doing it for like napkins or like the bottom of a curtain, even sometimes a skirt that's really flowy, a 3-thread overlock is just fine. And it's going to be narrowed, so it's not very big and it doesn't take as much thread. And all we have to do, take your screwdriver out from the inside door, take your scissors, and I'm going to just first I'm snipping the yellow thread out of my left needle. Go ahead, and yes, I am going to pull this backwards because I don't do it a ton, but I am going to remove the whole entire spool from the serger. Trust me, if you leave this on and maybe dangling from the top here, it's going to find its friends and get lonely and come back in and haunt you. So I am always a fan of telling people, if you're not using it, take it off the serger. So you'll always see me using just the threads that I'm supposed to be using there. Next, you can just take and the L for the next to the screw is the left needle. So I'm going to just gently okay, so these screws are really short, so you want to loosen it and then kind of wiggle that needle out. And then once you're done is to actually tighten that screw back in. Make sure you don't leave it kind of left out there. It can vibrate loose, so I'm just kind of tightening it as far as it will go. Now it's going a lot further back in than what I took it out. So just keep in mind that later when you go to put that needle back in, that screw needs to come all the way out far enough that it can go up to its highest position before locking that needle in place. So it has been removed. That's about all you need to do. That little thread down at the bottom is kind of like good to go. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to do one pass on a single layer of cotton fabric. Oh, I love the way it looks, but a lot of people will look at this and will identify that there's some gap, a little gap, not much, between the fabric and the overlock edge, right where the loopers come together. Now, honestly, it's not really a lot of change, but what happens is people sometimes get more loops over the edge and they're going to think it's a tension problem, which it's actually not. All it is how much the knife has cut off. So there's a knife adjustment we can make left or right to leave more or less fabric in that overlocked edge. So if there's a little gap at the end here, kind of with those loops hanging off, what you need to do is move the knife to the right, just enough that it leaves a little bit more fabric to fill it in. That knife adjustment is this dial right here, so I'm going to move it fairly quickly so you can see something is going to move this kind of door to the side and back in. So there is not a ever set number for you because your machine doesn't know which fabric you're working with. So you will just go ahead, if you need a little bit more, let's just go ahead and do a little bit. There we go. I can see that I've really filled it in, almost maybe a too much. I might kind of come back just a little bit so it's not kind of pushing against that edge. It still feels flat, but I kind of am looking for like a happy medium, filled in but not kind of squished. Is that a technical term? Well, it is today. So you can adjust that, and you will always need to kind of run a sample and see if that works. Ooh, I kind of like that one where it just barely kisses the edge, and now that looks like a perfect 3-thread overlock. Now, if you want a wider version of this, instead of taking out the left needle, you take out the right needle. So take the blue thread out and then leave the yellow one in, and now you have a wider version of that. I like to do that more on a thicker fabric, but the finer fabrics, cotton or thinner, I'm going to definitely use a narrow version. This is also the start of a rolled hem, because if we go ahead and remove this stitch finger, now we're doing a rolled hem. It'll be half the size of this. So if you're looking for something daintier, check out the 3-thread rolled hem video tutorial. You can see all the video tutorials in the link right here below. Click that subscribe button so you can always keep up on all the cool things that we're doing with machines these days.